On November 20th, 1984, Eternia faced one of its stranger security breaches. The royal palace was overrun by Skeletoids, smaller duplicates of Skeletor, moving through the palace as an army and doing what one Skeletor had repeatedly failed to do alone. At first, it looked like another takeover attempt, but the siege was only the result. The real case began earlier, when Skeletor and Whiplash discovered Man-at-Arm's experimental duplication device, a machine that could copy solid objects, but with one major flaw: every copy came out smaller than the original. For Man-at-Arms, that meant the device needed more testing. For Skeletor, it meant opportunity. Within a short time, the machine was stolen, the palace was under attack, and Skeletor had turned one unfinished experiment into a full-scale criminal operation. So how did a flawed invention become an army of smaller Skeletors? And why did the defendant believe the solution to his failures was simply more of himself? This is the case of here, there, Skeletors everywhere. To understand how the royal palace was overrun, we go back to the moment Skeletor gained access to Man-at-Arm's duplication device. Skeletor and Whiplash had already seen what the machine could do. It could create copies of solid objects, even if the copies were smaller than the original. That flaw was obvious from the start, but it did not stop them from moving forward. They follow Man-at-Arms back to the royal palace and take the device from his control. That gives the case its first charge: theft of experimental technology. Whiplash's involvement adds to the second charge: criminal conspiracy. Skeletor is not acting alone. He has help, and both of them are moving the same plan forward. Once Skeletor has the device, he uses it to create the Skeletoids, smaller duplicates of himself. The machine was already known to be flawed, but Skeletor uses it anyway, and he does it at scale. The Skeletoids are then sent into the royal palace. That is where the case expands. The palace is not simply threatened, it is overrun. Skeletor uses the stolen machine to create a force, sends that force into a protected seat of power, and attempts to take control. The danger is not theoretical. The defenders of the palace are forced to respond to a threat created entirely from stolen technology. Whiplash remains part of the case because he helped Skeletor reach that point. He is present when the device is discovered. He assists as the plan develops, and his role supports the conspiracy charge. But the central responsibility stays with Skeletor. He is the one who turns the device into a weapon. He is the one who creates the Skeletoids. He is the one who directs the attack on the palace. The defense could argue that Skeletor was taking advantage of an opportunity. But the evidence shows more than opportunity. It shows observation, pursuit, theft, duplication, and deployment. By the end, Skeletor's takeover does not hold. The Skeletoids may be smaller, but that does not make them easier to control. If anything, the problem becomes more obvious. Skeletor has not created a disciplined army. He has created a room full of smaller versions of himself, complete with the same arrogance, the same attitude, and the same inability to stay focused long enough to finish the job. For a short time, the Skeletoids help overrun the royal palace. The device gives Skeletor an advantage, and the palace falls under his control. But control is not the same as command. Once the plan begins to break down, the army that was supposed to secure his victory becomes another example of the same weakness that follows Skeletor everywhere. Too much ego, not enough discipline. Once He-Man gets involved, the advantage starts to slip. Skeletor's duplicate army can create chaos, but it cannot hold the palace, stop the rescue, or turn the takeover into lasting control. Skeletor is not captured, but he is forced back from a plan that briefly worked only because he flooded the palace with more of himself. The charges on file are theft of experimental technology, criminal conspiracy, unauthorized duplication, reckless endangerment, and attempted unlawful seizure of the royal palace. Skeletor is not taken into custody. He retreats after the plan fails. Thank you for watching Saturday Morning Cartoon Crimes. If this case earned your attention, please like the video and subscribe for the next one.